What's good? It's Russell Kane here. Today I'm going to discuss in the recent episode of AEW Dynamite. Finna jump straight into it. Starts off with a Strickland promo. He starts off mentioning Forbidden Door, mentioning his match with Will Ospreay. He gives respect to Will Ospreay, mentions the opponents he has faced, and mention how he's a fighting champion. Then he starts talking about the EVPs, and speaking of fighting champions, ends up mentioning how the EVPs, the Young Bucks, haven't defended their titles since they have gotten them. Then the Elite come out. The Elite, all the members of the Elite come out. Nick Jackson ends up talking about how dominant they have been. They talked about how they took out Kenny Omega, they took out Eddie Kingston, and how they won at Double or Nothing. And then he ends up saying that some wrestlers still doubt their abilities, so they challenge anybody to blood and guts. Then again in the ring, Matthew talks to Swerve, ends up saying that he ends up asking him, do he want to be do he wants does he wants to be with champions? Does he want to be with winners? And does he wants to change the world? And he ends up saying that since they don't have a fifth member, he ends up asking him, will Swerve Strickland be the fifth member of their team? Then he ends up giving Swerve Strickland their signature shoe. Swerve Strickland responds. He ends up saying that he doesn't wear a size 9 and that he's a businessman and he does his own thing. He turns to Prince Nana, gives him the pair of shoes, and Prince Nana throws the shoes into the crowd. He throws the shoes into the crowd. Then the Elite, of course, didn't take kindness to that. They get offended. They try to attack Swerve, but before they could, the Acclaim ends up coming out. The Elite end up leaving the ring, avoiding the Acclaim. Then Christopher Daniels ends up coming out. He ends up wanting everyone to go backstage except for Jack Perry to set up the match between Dustin Rhodes and Jack Perry, a qualifying match for a TNT championship, the TNT ladder match that's going to happen at Forbidden Door. Now, also this segment going to lead to next week. Well, actually, hold on. That's going to come on later, matter of fact. Now we get Jack Perry versus Dustin Rhodes. Qualifying match for a TNT championship. This was a decent match. Blood. Dustin Rhodes was bleeding a lot in this match. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me, but ever since I've been watching AEW, it seems like every match I watch Dustin Rhodes in, he's always bleeding. Maybe it's just me, but every match I have seen him in AEW, he's always bleeding. The match ends with a low blow from Jack Perry. The ref got distracted. Low blow ends up hitting a running knee. Jack Perry picks up the victory. He qualifies. It only makes sense. He's most likely going to be the one who wins that championship, having the Elite have all the gold in that faction. Next, we get a quick match between Roosh. He faces a jobber. He picks up the quick win. After the match, though, Roosh ends up attacking the jobber. After his win, he ends up attacking the jobber. You get MJF chants. MJF theme music hits. He comes out, runs to the ring, and they start brawling. Security try to break them apart, but they get taken out real easily. Then they start brawling again. They start fighting in the crowd. They end up going all the way backstage. They end up going to a backstage area. MJF ends up body slamming Roosh towards a table. They continue to brawl, and then eventually security was finally able to break them away. And this is going to lead to Roosh versus MJF next week. This will be MJF's first match since coming back. Excited to see how he looks. Excited to see how this match plays out. And I'm somewhat interested to see how this feud ends, because we know MJF's winning. I'm just wondering what's going to happen next, because we eventually are going to have to come back to Adam Cole. Maybe MJF could possibly get to the Elite storyline if possible. So very interested to see what their plans for MJF, depending on if Adam Cole isn't healthy by a certain time, because I know that's what they really want to go, but depending on if he's not healthy by a certain time, wonder what next for MJF is. Now next, we get a 6-man tag match between Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, Kyle Fletcher versus Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Konosuke Takeshita. This was a very fun, super fast-paced match. I love what they did here. Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Konosuke Takeshita ends up picking up the victory here. After the match, Trent Beretta, of course, attacks Orange Cassidy. Kyle O'Reilly and Konosuke Takeshita ends up attacking Mark Briscoe. While they're attacking him, Willow Nightingale's theme music hits. We assuming Willow Nightingale was going to run to the ring and try to make the save for Orange Cassidy, because she supports Orange Cassidy and they become friends. It looks like she was about to come out, but you see Chris Statlander was the one ends up attacking Willow Nightingale and ends up tossing her towards the entrance ramp. Stokely, because a quick promo, ends up saying that the next time she gets in Chris Statlander way, that she would end up in the emergency room. I love what they did here. They're still playing the story of Don Callis, of Trent Beretta and Orange Cassidy. I'm curious to see how they would still play up with Mark Briscoe and Kyle O'Reilly being in the picture now, because I know on Collision, Kyle O'Reilly ended up helping Orange Cassidy when he was getting attacked by Kyle Fletcher and yeah, it was Kyle Fletcher and Trent Beretta he was getting attacked by. So I'm interested to see how they play a factor into this as well. But I like what they did here. Nothing too major. Typical what we've been seeing for the past few weeks, but I still like what they did here, progressing the story. Next, we get a quick little segment with Christopher Daniels. He's in like a backstage area. He ends up saying that the Young Bucks and Okada will be in eliminator matches next week where there will be no interferences. And next week, I know for sure that they end up setting up the Acclaim versus the Young Bucks. Most likely, the Young Bucks are going to win because champions never lose. They never lose matches that are not a championship match. It just doesn't make sense. Interested to see how that plays out. Now, they say no interferences. Most likely, it's going to be like some type of cheating, most likely, probably. But the Young Bucks will face the Acclaim. I don't know who's facing Okada for his Continental title. Well, eliminator match for his Continental title. So, curious to see how that plays out. But yeah, next week, the Okada and the Young Bucks will have eliminator matches for their championships. Now, next, we get Premier Athletes versus Hook and Samoa Joe. This has been a feud that's been building up since Hook and Samoa Joe has been a tag team, been kind of this new duo. Hook and Samoa Joe easily take care of them. Now, I love what they did here towards the end, because the way they won was by submission, with Samoa Joe having one of the members of Premier Athletes in his submission, and then you had Hook also in the same submission, and then Shibata was actually out there too, and he ended up putting their manager in a submission as well, which was also hilarious. And it looks like Shibata will be a new member of this group as well. So it looks like this is going to be a new faction. I'm interested to see how this plays out. And before the match even started, Hook and Samoa Joe ended up attacking them during their entrance. Because I know on Collision, on last week's Collision, they ended up attacking them in the locker room. This trio has a lot of potential. It has a lot of potential, especially with Samoa Joe being the mouthpiece, being the main focal point of it. It has a lot of potential. I'm interested to see where this goes, though. Now, next, we get Mercedes Moné versus Zusi. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm not really sure. And a very entertaining match. We already knew who's winning. Mercedes Moné picks up the victory here. But this was actually better than I expected. This was actually a really good match. Interested to see what happens at Forbidden Door against her opponent. Don't know much about her opponent, but but it should be an interesting match. It is title for title. Most likely Mercedes is going to win. I just highly doubt she's losing it anytime soon. But interested to see what's next for Mercedes Moné. But this was a very solid match. Now next, we get TV time with the Learning Tree. Starts off with Chris Jericho doing his typical stick. Doing his typical thing. Then he invites Private Party to come out. Then he ends up mentioning how Private Party are a good tag team, but they can't pick up wins, and how their trainer must have sucked because they can't even climb the top rope right. Zay ends up responding, ends up saying that, how about you teach us then? Then Chris Jericho starts going step by step on how to climb a top rope, which I actually like. I actually like this part of the segment. I ain't gonna lie. I like this part of the segment. He ends up teaching them step by step on how to climb the top rope. Zay plays it off like he's actually, taking in the information. Then Zay ends up attacking Chris Jericho. Then Private Party starts attacking Brian Keith and Big Bill. And then once Big Bill and Brian Keith was outside the ring, Chris Jericho was still in the ring, and then Zay ends up doing a swanton bomb, and then forgot the other person's name. Ended up doing I forgot exactly, a shooting star. Yeah, he ended up doing a shooting star. Interested to see where this goes, though. I don't know where this goes from here, to be honest with you. Because I just have a hard time. Well, yeah, I have a hard time seeing where this feud goes, because I can see it being like a tag team thing. But typically, I feel like if they was gonna have Chris Jericho feud with someone, it'll probably be someone who's more of a single star. Now they could do a thing where Zay and the other member end up having their each have their shot at the FTW championship. But I'm interested to see where this goes though. This was a okay segment. I'm still not feeling this learning tree thing to be now it is kind of growing on me, but not really. Like I said, the gimmick itself I like. It's just more so how he's portraying it and how he's doing it that I'm not liking. But the gimmick itself I think is great. It's just how it's being displayed on TV. I just don't think it's being executed the way that I think it could that to execute it the way it should. But I mean, the gimmick, I don't know if it's over, but it seems like he gets good heel heat, so it looks like it's working. So who am I to judge? Next, we get Daniel Garcia versus a jobber. Not going to speak too much on this. Daniel Garcia wins. He gets closer and closer to the Intercontinental Championship against Will Ospreay, which he will eventually lose. We don't know what's next for Daniel Garcia because they typically do this thing where they push him and then they slowly bring him back down to earth, push him some more, bring him back down. So I don't know what they're doing with Daniel. To be fair, there's not much he can do because the title scene is a little stacked right now. So to be fair, they can't really put a title on him, really. The only title it would make sense is the TNT Championship, but that's going to go to Jack Perry most likely. So it's not really much they could do. The only thing they can do is if they want to put him on a tag team, but even that's kind of stacked. So it's not really a way they can really push him to really elevate him to that next level, unfortunately. But his match against Will Ospreay, whenever that happens, should be a good one though. Next, we get a little Pac segment. He ends up mentioning how he's tired of losing and that it's pathetic that he keeps losing all these matches and that he would enter the Owen Hart tournament and how he's on his redemption tour. Then he also mentions how that he hasn't forgotten what the Bang Bang Gang did and that he will be coming for payback. So eventually Pac will be coming for payback for the Bang Bang Gang. It looks like Death Triangle will coming back for revenge and potentially dethroning them for those trios championships. Now we get to the main event. Will Ospreay versus Rey Fenix. This was a fantastic match. Will Ospreay, Rey Fenix, we already knew this was going to be a fantastic match, a bang-over match. Really good match. We get towards the end, though, because Swerve Strickland in the match was watching with the crowd, watching in the crowd. After the match, after Will Ospreay wins, towards the end, actually, Will Ospreay ends up going on the top rope. He looks at Swerve Strickland and ends up saying that this is my house and ends up doing a swerve stop for the victory. Ends up using Swerve Strickland's own move to pick up the victory. Swerve Strickland, of course, will be frustrated like any other person would be. Gets mad, of course. Slowly walks up to the ring, confronts Will Ospreay. He ends up confronting Will Ospreay. Talking trash to Will Ospreay. Then Swerve Strickland tries to leave, but as he turned away from Will Ospreay ends up snatching his championship. He ends up snatching his championship and ends up putting his championship, Swerve Strickland AEW World Championship, on his shoulders with the Intercontinental Championship and looks Swerve in the face. Swerve, of course, is frustrated. He's furious. He ends up snatching his title back, goes up to his ear and ends up saying that you lucky you are my friend, because if anybody else would have done that, you would have been in the grave. And then that's the end of your Dynamite there. I love what they did here. I love that they're building more tension, more heat towards this feud. Because the match itself is enough to get excited, but the story that they could tell with this can make it even more exciting. Because it's going to be very hard, because with both of them being babyfaces, it's going to be very hard to really make that tension and heat to really build animosity towards you two with these both being babyfaces. But it can work mainly because Swerve is not your typical babyface, because even though Swerve's a babyface, he still has a lot of like heel like characteristics. So I think they could really expand on the story there. This overall has been it was a solid Dynamite. Nothing too special, very solid Dynamite. I'm interested to see what's going to happen at Blood and Guts with the EVPs, with the Young Bucks, who's going to face them. Could potentially be Swerve Strickland in that match. Swerve Strickland does have a problem with the Young Bucks. He does have a problem with the Elite. They did try to recruit him. Could have them. Possibly could have the Elite. I don't really see it personally, but you could have the not the Elite, the Acclaim. That's what I meant. Could have the Acclaim be in that storyline, continue their feud. Could be in that Blood and Guts match. I love what they did with Roosh and MJF. Now, I don't really care for Roosh, but I do like what they're doing with Roosh and MJF. A quick little feud to get MJF on his feet to eventually go to bigger and better things. Yeah, this was an overall decent show. Overall, good show. Nothing too major here. You guys let me know what you guys thought of tonight's show. Leave your opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, that's it.